So now let us, just to make sure you get the concept of gross margin and net margin, we're going to look at an example. Two very popular companies, Amazon.com and Google.com. Amazon.com's gross margin is 24%, whereas Google.com's gross margin is 65%. Now, if anybody who's not very well versed in finance is going to look at this and say, oh my God, Amazon is a terribly run company. Their gross margin is 1/3 of what Google's is. But you, being a corporate finance professional and having learned what a gross margin is, you will know that just because their gross margins are different does not mean one company is worse than the other company. No, Amazon.com is the #1 e-commerce company, Google is the #1 search company, and both are outstanding, world-classly managed companies. The reason Amazon's gross margin is only 24% of their revenues is because what does Amazon sell? Let's say books. Is an e-commerce site sell books. Let's say the average book costs $10. They sell a book for $10. How much do they keep out of the $10? A typical book probably costs Amazon about $5-6, right? So out of every $10 they sell, they only get to keep $4 or $5, if not lesser, based on what categories of products you're talking about. So whereas when you come to Google, Google is a search company. They make all their money when you click on those advertisements in your search results. So let's say every time you click on that advertisement, let's say the average advertisement is $5 a click. The advertisers are paying Google $5 a click. For every $5 Google takes in, Google has very little expense to serve those ads. It's not like the Amazon book. They have not very little expense. All the expense to serve that ad is probably some electricity at some server farm going on, a bunch of computers that's processing the search requests. That is very minimal compared to actually the cost of a product like a book, which is why most of the money that Google gets as revenue, Google gets to actually use it as an operating expense in terms of R&D, giving their employees free food, having fancy offices, getting into 500 different other products and all of that. Whereas Amazon doesn't have the luxury because they're a much lower cost of goods gross margin company, and that's not a bad thing. Retail is always a low gross margin business, but it's all about efficiency in retail. That being said, now let's say you went to a restaurant like this with your parents, right? Something like this. It looks pretty fancy. I can already see, I'm going to sit down at this table here with my mother and I'm going to order, let's say, paneer tikka. Now, it looks like a really fancy restaurant, so I'm going to assume a paneer tikka plate here is going to cost about 600 rupees. My mother's going to find out that plate of paneer tikka costs 600 rupees, and she's going to go, oh my God, a plate of paneer tikka is 600 rupees. Imagine how much profit these people are making. Okay, let's stop there. Now, when she says, imagine how much profit these people are making when it's only fine, when they charge 600 rupees for a plate of paneer tikka, the thought process that's going through her head is she's thinking, paneer probably costs 50 rupees max. Maybe they import their paneer, fine, whatever. 50 rupees. Their tikka, masala, oil, and all that stuff put together, another 50 rupees. So 100 rupees is the cost of making this paneer. Why are they charging me 500 rupees extra? So you realize what I'm trying to get at. When she says they're making so much profit, her expense calculation is stopping at gross margin. The cost of the paneer, the cost of the tikka and the masala and all of that is the cost of the ingredients, the cost of the gross margin. What she's not taking into account is she's not taking into account this, fancy lights up here. I've never seen lights like that in a restaurant. All these great ceilings and walls, the carpet, fancy chairs, maybe, white gloved hosts and hostesses serving you stuff. The operating expenses she's not taking into account. She's just taking into account the cost of the food and telling you it's a great gross margin. So next time you take your mother out and she tells you something is so expensive, you can actually explain to her the mistake she's making. Okay, maybe she just won't agree with you it's a mistake, but you can try anyway. Now, let's say you are passing in front of a restaurant that looks something like this. There's a fancy restaurant, there's some flags here, looks like a fancy road, and there's this huge limousine car parked outside where they take their guests home late night if they can't get home by themselves. Okay, So you probably notice, you probably walk by a restaurant like this or a hair salon in a really posh area, and I would wonder, how do these guys make a profit when they're located in an area like this? They have to pay so much on rent, they have to pay so much on like insurance, taxes, and all kinds of stuff. How do they still make a profit? When I say that, I'm actually talking about the operating expenses, because I don't even know what the restaurant sells. I don't know what their menu price is. I'm making a judgment saying they have to pay so much in rent. They have to buy this huge limousine car. The rent and the cost of the limousine car are not cost of goods sold that contribute your gross margin, but they fall somewhere here, which essentially contributes to your operating expenses and your operating margin. So here I'm actually talking about their operating margin. So now, hopefully, you have a fairly good hang about what an income statement is all about, the different components of an income statement, why is it used, the different terminologies used, and you even know how to build a very basic income statement. Yeah. So in the next session, what we'll actually be doing is we will still stay with income statement, but we will take a special case of the income statement and we'll talk about special scenarios and revenues and expenses like revenue recognition, accrual accounting, and cash accounting. And we will also focus on some financial ratios that will help you analyze an income statement better and actually make an intelligent call or decision on the operating efficiencies of a company. That is it for this session. Thank you very much. I will see you soon in the next session.
After 55 years of study, thousands of books, a handful of incredible mentors, and a half a century of experience, there are 4 classics I stick with to continually progress my life and our business. Think and Grow Rich, The Science of Getting Rich, You Were Born Rich, and Your Invisible Power. These are the classics of personal development, and they can dramatically improve and expand each and every aspect of your life. Join Sandy Gallagher and me April the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd as we dive into the depth of these 4 classics in one weekend, designed to take your life to the next level. If you want more money, better relationships, increased health, and more fulfillment than you've ever dreamed of, this is a must-attend, mind-expanding weekend.